We'll start up with the basics of the Python today. Okay, so what is Python? How it came in the existence and how it is like working up in the industry now. Okay, we'll see all these things. So today is all about the introduction to this Python language. Okay, so first of all is like why we are going to learn this Python. Why we need to learn Python. There are several languages in the industry why we are learning this Python. Okay. So the very first reason is that Python has an extensive libraries and the frameworks for very trending topics such as machine learning and the artificial intelligence. And some of examples is like Keras, TensorFlow, Scikit-learn, SymPy, SciPy, right? These are some of the libraries or you could say packages over there to work on very sub multiple fields. Okay. Next reason is like this language is what Python is an independent language, right? So it is not based on any like executable programs to like it is not like any dependent on any particular like it will be running on this particular system or right and right. Okay, so it can be run on Windows, it can be run on mobile phones, it can be run on Mac OS or Linux, web browser, anywhere. Okay, so this is a platform independent language. Okay, so there are various features why it is very important. Okay, next is like when we talk about the community, every programming language has community over there. Now Python has very big community, right? And it is so much used that every day, right? Every day, these developers come like solving up the problems in the new libraries, right? And always try to make some new libraries so that we could have our much focus on the codes. Okay, so that is community purpose. Python is having a very big community, and also like it's in the top three languages in the world, so it's very popular. Okay, and when you talk about the difficulty level, so it is very easy to learn. Okay, there is no such declaration things like making on the data types, right? So it is very easy to learn, and this language reassembles every day, right? And the syntax is very easy to learn. Okay, so I think, yeah, fine. Right, let's do one thing. Okay. So if you have doubts, you will be writing up there. Okay. Now, so like these are the much important features of why this is important. Now, coming up to what you can do with this language, you can develop a website, you can develop softwares, you can develop your games as well as your graphics. You can develop Android applications. Like there are many languages which are totally built on Python. And you can take example of Instagram, you can take example of Facebook, bit running. Instagram is totally running on that. Hmm? So there are languages, sorry, there are applications. Okay, so you can perform data analysis, a very huge part, right? That is very important of the data analysis. And meanwhile, you can in the AI field, you can create ANN and you can manage big data. There are some tools coming up there, like with the help of this Spark, like Power BI, right? With help of all those things. Okay. Okay. So features when we talk about so no compiling or no linking or linking is like it is an interpreter based language. When we say interpreter, that is it's totally different from compiler. But the fact is that this language is first compiled and then being interpreted. Okay. So compiler in the sense means that your code will be run at once. Okay. Just a moment. Okay. So like you don't have to declare the types, whatever you will be writing up regarding the data types. So there are a lot of features. Okay. Uh, you can even convert any particular. You can convert to any particular of the codes. Like you can convert to JSON. You can convert to C, C++ by writing up in the Python. So that is portability, one kind of thing. Okay, it is easily embedded anywhere else, right? So a lot of uh, features, lot of advantages are there for this. So I hope it is clear to you, right? Hmm. So moving up, now when we come to programming in the Python, right? So we work at some IDEs, right? What is an IDE exactly? So when we say an IDE, so IDE is an integrated development environment. Okay, an integrated development environment in the sense like let's say that you want to make any presentation, right? So for making a presentation, what you do, you just go over there on the Microsoft PowerPoint and you just start making a presentation over there, right? And let's say you want to create a spreadsheet. What to do, you go to Microsoft Excel and then you start working up there, right? Similarly, we want to write up the codes in the Python, right? Then it is coming with the official version of the Python. You have the official IDE. What you can see on the screen is an official IDE. Now, this gives you an interface where you can just write up your codes and then you can run this, right? And you'll be getting your suitable respective outputs. Okay. So this one is an official ID. Okay. So there are a lot of environments and editors coming up there for many languages, like where you can run a lot of things. So we will be using one of the environment, Anaconda Navigator. Okay, Anaconda Navigator we will be using up there, right? So that gives a particular space to run up the things. Let's say this is the environments look like when I install this. So this is how it looks like. Okay, and we'll be working on this Jupyter notebook, right? You can even work on this PyCharm. So there are a lot of editors. Whatever suits you, you can go with that. You can just search on the net like what are the editors suits to you. Okay, so we'll start up. Okay, so let me tell you that how your classes would be. Okay, so like it's 9 to 11. Okay, so 9 to 10 will be your live class and 10 to 11 will be your assignment part. Okay, so we'll be having classes from 9 to 10 and then from 10 to 11 you will be solving up the assignments. All right, so daily you'll be getting around assignments over there. So that is you'll be solving up uh, and that is how we'll be running up the classes. Cool. And when we talk about the industry usage, so a lot of company are using this. Let's say for Google, BitTorrent, NASA, mm, and let's say for Netflix. Everyone is now, you can say, the very big companies as how are using this Python, right? Instagram, Facebook, a lot more are there. Okay, will not go in that one, right? You'll be getting the PPT of all those. So, will we start? We'll be starting. Okay, cool. So once like you have downloaded this Anaconda, you can launch directly the Jupyter notebook. So once you launch this, it will be like an interface of this. Okay. So our first objective will to understand the differences between the integers and the floats and work with some simple and some weird mathematical operators and then add some comments to your code, right? So when we say for adding comments to it, it's completely unrelated. We have to have some to go there, right? So let's just say working with the numbers and the maths, or the, you can see here some integers and you can see here some floating points, right? So what you can see the difference is like the decimal numbers are called as the floating point or as floats. Apart from the decimal, a number which is not having a decimal point is an integer. What you can see up here in the table, right? It's very clear from here. Okay. So let's make it there. Okay, you can create directly by clicking on the new and then on the Python. And let's say to rename this. So PY10 today is 21. Okay. So as I said, I'll be just looking up quickly over the basics. Okay. So today is an introductory part. And on the basis of this, you'll be having assignments from the 10 to 11 part. Okay. All right. So let's say that in Python, the very first thing, in any language, the very first thing comes as keywords. Okay. Now, keywords are some reserved names which are present in any programming language which you cannot use as a variable or which you can't use as a file name, right? Why? Because these are made, these keywords are having its own functionalities. Okay, these are some of the reserved names which are having its own functionalities, and like you can't use as to for this variables up and all. Okay, so we'll be seeing also what are variables and all. Okay, so our main focus is to understand how many keywords are there. Okay, and okay, so let's say keywords, right? So how many keywords are there totally? Right? So what we can do is directly write the help, and we can write up here the keywords inside the parentheses. So the brackets you are making is the parentheses. These are called as parentheses. Okay, so brackets are parentheses, and the quotes inside the things are called as string. Okay, so what you have written up here inside quote, if you write anything, is a string, and this brackets are called as parentheses, and this help is a function you are using. Okay, so in the help function, how you can say it's a function, right? Anytime when you write anything, right, and you are making up a bracket just after the word, that is a function actually. Okay, so and inside this also you are writing something that is a parameter or can say argument over there. So inside this help we are writing keywords, and we'll just run this. So for running, you can use this run, or else you can run this shift plus enter. Okay. So you'll get false, class, from, or, none, continue, global, everything up there. Right. So you can see a lot of keywords over there. Now, these are all the keywords what are there in the Python. Right. And they are meant for their own functionalities. And if you want to get if you want to get more information about any of the keyword, you can just similar write as help, and then inside the string you can write any particular keyword and you will get that. Let's say we want to see what is this is used for. So see, we have got that this is like Unlike all comparison operators, and we have some priorities, and this is how S works, right? For various comparisons and all. So you don't have to just go on the internet and to search of the things, right? So that is how you can get any information regarding the things. Let's say you want for the break. So this is how break works. So this occurs syntactically nested for the while and the loops and all. Okay, so it basically stops the loop anywhere where you use this. It terminates it there. All right, fine. So like you can see all the helps of when if you want to study up for all the function, all the keywords, you can study from there. All right. Next we come up to that what are numbers in Python? What are numbers? So in Python, numbers are of basically three kinds. Okay, two we have seen up here, that is integer and the floats. Okay, so we have integer and floats. Now, what are integers? Right. As I say, the number which will not have any decimal points, or you can say the whole number, right? The whole number is an integer, including the zeros. Right. So let's say if I'm saying x is equals to 6, or I'm saying y is equals to -4, or even I'm saying z is equals 0. So these all are integers, right? So a number which is not having any fractional value or any decimal value will be called as a integer. Now, if I want to check, like, if I'm saying that this is an integer, then how can I be sure that this is an integer itself, right? So for checking the type, right, for checking up the type, you can use this type function to see what kind of thing it is, right? So let's say we are checking for type of x. So type of x will say you that what exactly kind of thing this is. Understood? So let's just run this. We are seeing int. Int stands that this is an integer, right? Similarly, you can find the type of y, type of z, so you'll get all those things. Now, if I use this print function and I say I'm going to print x, y, and the z, okay? We'll run this. I'll get the output that is 6, -4, and 0, respective outputs over there. Okay. So these are the integer kinds. Okay, fine. Similarly, when a number is having, so integer can be 0, integer can be positive, integer can be negative, right? But it can be decimal. That's it. When coming to a float, a floating point, so when coming to a floating point, or float, you can say, right? These are the numbers which are having compulsorily a decimal value or a fractional value. So if it is not there even, so it must be zero point 0, right? So let's say here, let's take A, B, C. And this could have some points compulsorily, only then we'll call it as a float. This can be negative, this can be positive, right? So if I see the type of, let's say take any of the thing, so this will be float. I think it's clear, right? So number having some decimal points or the fractional points with it is called as floating point or float. and irrespective the another one, if it is not having all these things, there's a basically it's kind of a integer, right? But what if you add some imaginary part to it, right? Imaginary part is like complex numbers. Okay, so when we add any real part and imaginary part together to form a number, we say it to be a complex number, right? So in complex number, we have some imaginary part as well as some real parts. So let's say this is my x and this y and z, and a complex number is always in the form of a plus bj. Okay, so let's say where your a is a real part and bj is your imaginary part. This is 23j. Okay, so this can be used as a complex, any three things. So let's just see the type. So this is a complex type. Okay, now if you just print this all, you can see 32j, 4 plus 40j and 2 minus 3j. Now what is the real part of this number and what is the imaginary part of this number? How it is different? So every time when you will come with an output of a float, of a complex, you'll be getting the answers in the float always. Okay. How? Let's say if we are saying that for any particular number, if we are finding the real part, we just first print x, then the real part of x, and then also the imaginary part of x. Okay. So this x dot imag is giving you the imaginary part of this x. This real will give you the real part of the x, and the x itself we are going to print. So we are getting that x is exactly 32j, out of which the real part is 0.0 and the imaginary part is 32.0. Right? That is correct exactly. Why? Because you don't have any real part here. Is there any number, right? Like 2, 3, 4, 5, anything over there? No. No addition, no subtraction, only of a number with an imaginary part. Right? So you will be only having the imaginary part and the real part will be 0. Similarly, if we just go on for this y, nice. So y is 4 plus 40j, where the real part is 4.0 and the imaginary part is 40.0. I hope this is clear. Okay, this is how this number works, right? Well, 1 minute. Now, there is one more number, right? That is called as a random number. And this is model basically, which is very important in Python, right? So for using this random, you'll have to call this, you'll have to import this first of all. So we can write it as like import random, right? Now there we have a lot of choices with this random to work, right? You can find a range, you can find an integer, you can take up any numbers over there. So random or random, right? Oh, shit. So random is particularly giving you some any random values. That is very straight away from its name, right? So let's just take, we are taking up a function that is rand int. Okay, so from this random, we are using this rand int, and this comes inside this random. So we'll have to use first random and then the first rand int. In place you don't want to use this random dot rand int, what you can write from random import rand int. So if you write it like this, then you don't have to use random dot rand int. You can directly use rand int over there. We have imported random. Everything is being imported, so we'll use rand int. So rand int of 2 by 4. So what is the meaning of 2 to 4? Well, is when we run this, we are getting some values, right? What you can see, 2, 3, and 4 in the following operations, executions, we saw it to be 2, 3, and 4. Now, how exactly it's running, right? So, this random basically gives you, uh, you can say, uh, place, right, where you can write up your ranges, where you can put up your values to get as the output. If whatever the value you will be satisfying, you will be giving up there, whatever the value you will be giving, like let's say for 2 or for anything, whatever the value you are giving up there, you'll be getting the outputs between that intervals, or you can say between that ranges. Like this is your starting number, this is your stopping number, that's it. So you define some starting and stopping numbers in your uh, random, right? And then it comes between those values. So in rand end, what happens? It starts from 2, whatever you are giving as, for the example, you are giving for 2, it will start from 2, it will go for 4. So every time a new number will be there, not a new, right? Because it's only with the 2 and 4. So you'll be getting some numbers and which you don't know. That is the output. In this case, the output you don't know what is going to come, but it is always going to come between the 2 and 4, right? So we'll run this. We can be sure that the output will be always between 2 and 4, but exactly what it will be, we don't know. Okay, now, so that is like how random works. All right. Now in Python, when we have talked about all the, you can say all the numbers and integers, now we'll see one of the thing that is type conversions. Right. So in type conversions is like where you change one number to another number, or one data type of a number to another one. Let's say from integer to float, float to integer, float to complex, complex or integer, string to integer, right? Integer to string, float to string. So how is that done? Let's say, okay, so there are two kind of type conversions basically, or let's say for changing the data types, we have two kinds. We'll see it later. Okay, so how these are executed? Let's say that you have x, which is an integer, and you have y, which is a float. Similarly, you have a z, which is a complex. Okay, and now I want to print the float value of x. So in that case, I can easily write print the float of x. That's it. Done. Okay. Similarly, print the, if I want y to be an integer, so print the integer of y. Print the, that is complex, right? So we'll print the str of complex. So str of complex is right, that this will be printing up in the string format. Okay, and string format you all know, right? We are using this from the very beginning. The string format always come inside the quotes, right? So this will be the string format. Okay. So first we'll run this three. We'll see the outputs. So you can see x from 34 came as 34.0, y from 45.3 came to be 45, and z from 2 plus 45j came to be 2 plus 45j itself. But this is a string, right? This is a string. We are not seeing it like that, but this is a string, right? If you see the data type of this, it will be a string. So that is exactly an str of z, a kind of a string you are getting up. But when you use inside this print, you will not get this one, but it's still hold the string. Okay, all right. So even you can change from an integer to string, float to string, integer complex. So you want, let's say, the complex of x. So that will be 34 plus 0j. Okay, right? So let's just say that if you are having numbers in a string, if you are having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, again some repetitions and some sort of numbers you are having. So how many total numbers are there, right? Let's say this is g equals something. So to calculate the length or to calculate the overall elements, or you can say the characters present inside any string or any data type, so calculate the length, we'll be using up len of g. We'll run this. So 26 particular numbers are there. Okay, right? Now, when I'm writing this g equals and x equals, or right, like a equals, b equals, what are these things? Right? What are they called as? So these are called as variables. Okay. So these are particularly the variables. Now, in Python, right, variables are the you can say the name, right, the reserved memory locations to store up some values. Okay, so these are a kind of a character which have a particular memory location to store or to hold some of the values you'll be giving up. Okay, so that is a Python variable itself. Now, it can be defined in many ways. You can write variable underscore, you can write underscore variable underscore, you can write like this. So there are a lot of methods which are name conventions. Okay, we'll see what are the name conventions. Okay, so calculator will be using up now. So that should be there, that variable must start with an underscore or a letter directly. You cannot start with a number, you cannot start with any of the thing at the rate and like that. Okay, well, so that is a variable basically. So it can start with an underscore, it can start with a basic just a simple letter. Cases is not a big issue for that. You can use uppercase, you can use lowercase for any of the runs. Okay, now let's say using this as variable. Right, we'll run this. So you can see that welcome to Theeks is a string class, right? So you have got the output first. What is var? So it is welcome to Theeks. And what is the type of this var? That is a class of a string. Okay. So whenever, again I'm repeating, whenever you write any of the things inside the codes, that will be a string one. Okay. Now, so Python can be used up as a calculator, right? With this heading, you can say, okay. So you can add anything, you can subtract anything, you can go like with the various BODMAS applications and all. So there are some of the common used operators in this Python, like for addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, exponentiation, modulus, and the integer division. So we'll see today what are these things. Okay, and based on these, you'll be having your assignments over there also. Okay, fine. So we'll just quickly start up the things. Okay. So let's just say that now we are going to see some of the operations, and these are the arithmetic operations. Okay. So how many operations you'll see? The six operations: plus, minus, multiplication, integer division, modulus, and exponentiations. Okay. Let's say we are adding two numbers. Want to add some two numbers? We'll be using the plus. Subtracting two numbers, minus. Multiplication of two numbers, division of two numbers. That is very easy. So all the values are 2 plus 3, 5, 4 minus 5 minus 1, 4 multiplied by 520 and 4 by 5.8, right? Now in case of this 4 by 5 as 0.8, if you don't want this 0.8, you only want the integer value, what you'll use? 4 divide by 5. That is an integer division. So if you are dividing anything and you only want the integer value, let's say you are dividing 100 by 3, what is the outcome? This. But you say that you want only the integer value. That is the difference. Okay. So only integer value will give you the 33. That is the only integer value. Similarly, if you divide anything, right, and you want to check the integer. So let's say when dividing 100 by 3, what is the integer? Sorry, what is the remainder? 1. Okay. Similarly, 10 divided by 5. Right. So what are the remainders over there? So when 100 is divided by 3, it's not completely divisible. So we are getting a remainder over there, that is 1. So 3 multiplied by 33, 99, and you'll be getting 1 there. Similarly, for 10 divided by 5, completely divides over there, and you get a remainder of 0. Right. That is modulus is used for finding up the remainders. Now let's say this is 23, or let's say this is 2 to the power of 10. So what will be the outcome? 1024. Right? So 2 to the power of 10. So double asterisk can be used to find out the exponentiation value or the exponent value. Single one will be used for multiplication purpose. I think this basic operators are clear to you. Right? So these are the operations when we do with some of the numbers. Now let's say this is an integer data type. Right? And we are adding a float to it. So automatically its complete data will be changed. That is, its complete type will be changed. From integer plus float will give you a float. Understood? So that is an automatic change in the data type. But when you write that you only want the integer value, even after adding up the things, in that case you are enforcing this to be in integer. So this is your defined type, and this is automatic. Okay, fine. Okay, right. So these are the basic, you can say, operators of this arithmetic for basic calculation, right? So that is important. So key points to remember while conversion is that type conversions basically gives you a change in one from one data to another data set, another data type. Okay, and there you can have the types as explicit conversions or implicit conversions. Okay, so implicit conversions are which are um automatically done, right? So that not to be defined on, right? That is like you can see this automatically it's 2 plus 4.5. We are getting the change in your total data type that is coming as float. Similarly, for this one is explicit where you define like what to become there, right? Whether an integer or a float or a complex, whatever you want, right? You can even give it as a complex. See, okay. So you define up the things over there. Similarly, when we come up to the next topic, right, that is, I think, the calculations with the string, right? So when we say calculations with the string, so in a string you can't do the calculations, right? That is, let's say this is a string str, and you're saying you want to add a 2 over there. That is not possible. Why? Because one data type cannot be added up with a second data type in case of a string. Number can be added up, right? That is a complete data type of a numeric. But when we say for string, it is not possible there, right? So you can't add up there. Yes. For adding this to or in string, what you can do, you can only join these things. You can add up, you can subtract, and you can't do anything up there, right? That is how you can do with the characters, right? So you can join these things. For joining also, that needs to be an str category. That needs to be an string one. So in that case, you can join str of 2, or you can also write it as str. These are some of the common operations. 2, right? So when you write str multiplied by 5, in that case you'll be getting the string for 5 times. Just give some gaps. Okay, so you'll be getting up the things for 5 times, right? So this is called as string replication. When you go on doing some mathematical calculations with the string, that is called as a replication. Okay, so I think this is clear to you, very much clear. Okay, now the last part of today's, that is input. So input function. Now this functions allows you to take user's input, right? Whatever the user's input it is, it allows to give the or it allows to take the user input of what you want to store up in your variables or respective things. Okay, so let's say you want to store names. So we'll make a variable of name, and then you will say input, and inside that we'll run this just. So you can see a box coming up there, and we can write up your names or anything over there, right? Enter. So well, what is this name storing now? This is having peaks, right? But what if I just want to make some spectacular inputs, right? If I want that something to be displayed when I want to give input. So in that case, let's say you are entering up the marks and you want to find the percentage, right? So let's say overall marks is 360. Okay, so you'll take the marks input. Now you'll be giving up something here inside the string which will be printed. So we'll write out of 360. So input marks out of 360. Clear. We'll run this, and now you can see enter marks out of 360 is asking. So let's say this is 287. Run this. Now, how to calculate the percentage? Marks divide by 360 into 100. How? You'll get an error. Why? Because whatever you have taken, right? This is why, because whenever you take the input, it is always in a string format. So in that case, you can't do the calculations again. Remember? So what we have to do is we have to take this input in an integer. So we'll just write up there integer. Or always in marks cases, always try to take input in the float, because marks can also be in some points. So this time it will run and we are getting some outputs. Okay, right? So getting the outputs also. If you want the integer, if you want the first two values or like that, right? That case you can write up the things and you can get up this. So for making some calculations for then like you have to make suitable inputs, right? So suitable inputs you have to make it for the suitable generations of all the inputs you are taking. Like let's say you are taking up for the uh, marks or anything such thing which is related to any calculation part. You must take all those things inside the float. Okay, understood? Like that. All right. So I think everything is clear to you. Okay. So today's agenda was up to this input function, and we're having assignments with that.